Welcome to the Great New Zealand Real Estate Project. Today I spoke with Angela Little, and she has been in real estate for over 30 years. She started out as a PA, went on to become a licensee, then a franchise owner, and now she coaches real estate agents across the country. We spoke about everything from how real estate agents grow their business to some of the common mistakes that agents can make. And we even talked about things like whether or not a company should be providing leads to an agent or not. Now, Angela had some great ideas, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we think, it matters what you think. So get involved and join the conversation. So you're a real estate coach.
I am a real estate coach. I've been a real estate coach for about 15 years now. Had a huge background in admin and then selling real estate for 15 years. Had our own franchise and built an organic property management portfolio as well. So yeah, about 5 years I took it on more seriously, the coaching side, and now coach several companies, including Trinity Network, which is a national company, and love it.
Yeah, so how long has your experience been in real estate?
I'd say I started probably 18 and I'm just a tad bit over 50. So I'd say maybe 35 years is how long I've had in real estate.
Long time, and you're still going strong.
Yeah.
And so you would have seen a lot across the years, right?
Yeah,
and now we're in a pretty tough market for a lot of agents.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about some of the most effective strategies that agents are using at the moment?
I think this is the only business that you can start, right, without any investment. You can't go and start a business without buying something and putting some equity into. And you've got to do the same with real estate. You've got to invest in your brand strategy. You've got to think about what that looks like. Think about your strengths, what your weaknesses are, but play to your strengths. So going into a community, choosing where you want to work, 500 to 1,000 homes is a really good idea to start with. And using that brand strategy to get to know the area, giving back into the community to make sure that the community is actually reaping the benefits of you working alongside them, I think is really critical. Using inquiries using inquiries, like a lot of salespeople have call phobia and they don't want to call people back, and they don't call people back. There's a very small percentage. So once again, making sure that you're calling people back, you're talking to them about real estate, you're asking them if they've got a property to sell, get a buyer VIP list, make sure, especially in a buyer's market like we're in, make sure that you are working those buyers and showing them other properties. Because if you're not, it's a service industry, and if you're not servicing your clients, you will be overlooked. And this is a time when a lot of salespeople will drop out of the market. So you want to be standing and you want to be doing really, really well.
So back to basics. A lot of what you're saying there, right?
Yeah.
Making sure you're making your phone calls, getting out there.
Yeah.
What do you think about something like door knocking in today's environment? I mean, there's a lot of push towards technology and innovation, but from my experience, there's a huge element of personal contact.
Yeah. Look, I've recently looked massively at social media and promoting myself through social media. I think if you're established and you're in an area and you're putting just listeds, just solds, and you're doing a bit of personal promo, great. But starting out or working in an area that you're not typically working in, potentially you've just got to go and meet the people. You've got to build relationships. It's a service industry. It's a relationship industry. Sure, social media is an add-on, but I don't think it's going to win the business, and I don't think it's going to make you a real estate agent solely by just social media. There are lots of other websites with real estate, Trade Me, that you can put adverts up on, and you do have to invest. If you want to be in a community, you have to invest in not only sponsorship and the community, but also being an agent relevant to where people are looking to sell and to buy.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because a lot of people think that, things like knocking on a door is outdated, and maybe even, people might even find it intrusive.
Yeah.
Yet you mentioned, how important it is. It's a relationship-based business. And so as agents, if they don't have the opportunity to meet people, how else are they going to do it?
Yeah.
So what do you think around whether or not it is it the best way to do it, knocking on a door, or is there other ways to build those networks and connections face to face?
Whenever I have started out at a new company, or I've honestly just picked up a local directory of phone numbers. They still have them in certain areas, and I've just started from A and called 20 people a day. You soon work out what your appraisal rate is. Door knocking. So anyway, if I go back to what I was talking about, so maybe out of every 16th call, I'll get one appraisal, and it's woohoo, I'm one closer. What salespeople don't remember is that if they are not letting people know that they exist, then they are doing them a disservice. And this is what a lot of salespeople don't understand. If you don't tell people you exist, if you don't speak to them in the street or phone them or door knock them, and it's just what you're comfortable with, then you are doing an injustice to those people, because they don't know you exist, and you are potentially going to be the person that they want to sell their house through, because you are going to get them the best possible price. So that's exactly how I think of prospecting. So all these people I coach go, I don't want to pick up the phone, I don't want to go and door knock, and I'm like, well, how on earth do people know if they want to use you?
Yeah, it's almost a mindset shift, isn't it? Because it's this idea that if you don't believe in the value you're adding to someone, and you feel like it's intrusive, or you're telling someone something they don't want to hear, then it's pretty difficult to pick up the phone and ring 20 people a day.
Yeah, but if you just believe that you're doing a good thing for those people, which is what I would always think, it's amazing the confidence that you exude, and the results that you get, like you're friendly, you're polite. And the whole point of the call or the meeting is to get an email address so that you can put it into your database and you can email them every fortnight or every week or every month, whatever you're comfortable with, because that is the silent salesperson, a bit like a sign on a property, where they're receiving something with your head on it, with your name, so that when they do want to sell, you are there for them to give a call to. Of course, you should be ringing your database every 3 months, every quarter, just to say, hi, how are you? How's it going?
Yeah, and I guess the other thing around that is, how do you add value to those people through your emails and things?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's got to be something they want to receive and get value from.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I imagine that a lot of people would go, what are you contacting me for?
Yeah. You've just got to know your market as well. And when you're contacting people, you've got to add value every single time. So you've got to be giving some kind of information that they possibly didn't know. You've got to understand what's happening in the market, the best method of sale in the market. You've got to listen. You just got to listen to people and ask questions and be prepared to listen. 80% is listening in real estate.
Yeah, definitely. And it is one of those things where you hear or see a lot of people, I mean, in any sales industry, where the biggest mistake they make is just to try to tell people what they do rather than listening to what the other person needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you can get a lot from asking the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you say are like some of the biggest mistakes that an agent could make when they're launching a business, or starting out in their prospecting, or maybe they've even been doing it for a long time, but what are the common mistakes you see from agents?
I think just not communicating effectively and not staying in touch with people. Just becoming complacent. It's a high energy. You've got to work the hours. You've got to connect with the people. So the minute that someone takes a step back and becomes complacent and stops communicating, you find their business just goes down. So I think that's the most important thing, thinking about how you can add some value to those people's lives. Giving them a call right now is perfect, and saying, hey, how's your house? Have you had any flood damage? Have you had any stickering go on, especially in this Rodney Waitakere district of Auckland? And of course, if you're in the Hawke's Bay, absolutely.
Yeah, just reaching out and showing people that you care as well.
Yeah, care about them, for sure.
Yeah. So on that, what do you think is the biggest misconception between an agent and what they do and what the public might expect of an agent or their perception of an agent?
I think if you're talking about commission, I think a lot of it is they see how much they need to pay a real estate salesperson for the work that they do, and that fee is a negotiation fee, period. You know, you can have a list of a billion things that real estate salespeople do, and they don't get paid for anything until they have an unconditional sale. So I think it's critical to remember if you're talking to someone and they're saying, well, you just charge too much, or you know, what are you doing? I hope this is relevant to what you've just asked me. Yeah. Then it's the negotiation. It's you're paying for my negotiation. A lot of people who sell privately, they don't like talking about money. They don't like being direct. They don't want to ask the question, well, I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. How about another 50K? You know, people don't like talking about money generally. So we've got to remember and sell the fact that the fee is for our negotiation skills, pretty much, period.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense to me because, like you said, there's so many different parts that an agent does.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the value that someone is adding to that transaction is their ability to negotiate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess the real question is the agent a good negotiator or not, right? And there's a lot of different agents out there, and I'm sure people have had different experiences as to the value that agent has brought.
Sure.
Yeah. So what are some things that an agent can do to improve their negotiation skills or even to communicate to someone that they're a good negotiator?
Oh, I think you've just got to ask the question. You know, you're working for your vendor. We're all being paid by our vendor, and some people forget that. So we are there to get as much as we possibly can for the vendor and to keep asking and keep getting the best result. Creating competition and urgency between buyers is critical in any market. And so understanding the best method of sale to get that in whatever market you're in can make a massive difference between, I mean, I've seen an auction property sell $1 million over and above in a hot market than what the vendor was expecting it to. So, I think that's critical, understanding it.
Yeah. And I'm sure that the person with that $1 million over what they were expecting, the vendor would be more than happy for a commission.
Absolutely.
Because of how much more they got, which they probably couldn't have done if they sold privately.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure some people can, but a lot of people don't do this every day.
Well, they get to decide what they sell for. So if they don't want to sell, they don't have to pay the commission.
Exactly.
So, you know.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because there's this idea that the agent puts in a lot of work, and at the end of the day, they're only going to get paid if the owner is willing to respond to the feedback, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's actually an element of risk for an agent to put in all that work, and they're really in some way at the mercy of the seller as to whether or not they're actually going to get paid.
Yeah, it's funny whenever I used to get people say, oh, Ange, will you pay for the marketing? I go, yeah, sure, I'll pay for the marketing as long as I can decide what reserve we're going to sell it for. You know, like that's another whole discussion, vendor finance or vendor funding. But yeah, so we've got nothing to do with it. All we can do is educate our vendor, and that's critical in the market that we're working in. Lots of communication, and at the end of the day, we're at the mercy of a vendor. But we've got supposedly that relationship where they will listen and make good decisions themselves.
Yeah, and I guess that's where it comes down to that relationship again, isn't it? And you've got to build that trust, and you've got to build that rapport with someone so that they value the information you're giving them when they make that decision. Yeah. Yeah. So you touched on vendor-funded marketing. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that.
It's a bit like when you get a painter for your house. The painter will always charge you for their time and also for the paint. It's, you know, it's one of those situations where unless you can convince your seller that you can create competition and urgency so that when an offer is presented to them, they are in a position to make a really good decision. If you don't leave every stone unturned, how are they going to make that decision to sell their most valuable asset? Unless you've actually cast a net out as wide as you possibly can to as many buyers as you can and to get the best possible result. So for me, vendor funding is a no-brainer. It's just a matter of the investment that they can afford at the time. And these days, there are companies that offer finance that you don't pay interest on until the property is unconditional and sold. So, I would personally never, ever put a property, sell a property privately or put it with an agent without investing in some funding, because you just can't make a really solid decision at the end of the day what you're doing.
Yeah, and I guess on that, there's a lot of agents who will offer vendor funding to get a deal or to sign up a listing, because they go, I'll give you this and I'll give you that and I'll give you that. I've always thought of that around negotiation, that it shows that the agent's not able to negotiate and the value of their service. Mm-hmm. Obviously, people have different perspectives on that. So, so what would you say to an agent who is currently requiring themselves to pay or using that as leverage to get a listing? What would you say to the agent who does that and to the owner who is being offered that?
Look, the vendor funding should be paid up front, right? If the people are really struggling with it because of an affordability option, then I may offer, speak to the hierarchy above you to refund 50% upon a successful sale. So it comes off the top. But I would never, ever pay it up front, because you're always questioning the motivation of your seller. Are they really motivated? And quite often people will say, I'll pay it up front, and then they may withdraw their property and you're left holding the baby. And there's just no way you should do that. So if you're finding that you're in a position where you can't sell the fact that it's critical they invest themselves in vendor funding, you probably need some scripts and dialogues, to be fair. Because it should never be a discussion. And if you miss out on business because someone else is offering free marketing, then I think you just let them go for it, because your services are far more important than working for free. You're far better to put that time into prospecting for a new listing, in my opinion.
Yeah, nice. And what would you say to a vendor who has two agents, one's offering vendor funding, the other's not? It's obviously very tempting for them to go for the deal, right? And go, oh, well, this person's going to pay for this and I don't have to pay for it. So, what would you say to them?
So quite often that can be smoke and mirrors as well. I would always say, can I please have a look at what the other company's offering? Because quite often when you get it, it is smoke and mirrors. It might be costing them $500, but they've said it's going to be more expensive than that. And once you break it down, you might think, oh, actually it's $500. So, we can work with this. They can get this finance off this card, or we can work with our manager to do something. But always ask to see a written proof of what the other company's offering, because quite often it's not what it seems.
Yeah, and what do you think around the fact that they need to offer that to get the listing? Would you go for the one who's not offering it, who's standing firm and saying, look, if you want to list with that company, go for it. For me, I want to provide value through my ability to negotiate, blah, 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 blah.
Well, the thing is, if they're choosing an agent because of their marketing costs being paid up front, they're not the vendor you want to start with. The thing is to ask them, am I your preferred agent? If you are their preferred agent, it's a no-brainer. You're not even going to have this conversation about it. But somewhere along the line in the presentation, you've missed something along the line that's given them the ability to trust you with their biggest asset and giving you money to market the property. Because once again, if you've got your scripts and dialogues and you truly believe it's the right thing for the vendor, which it truly is the right thing for the vendor, then you don't have those discussions. At the end of the day, they will beg, borrow off their friends or uncle and or auntie, whatever they have to do to get you to work for them. So, that's what I've seen in my experience.
Yeah, and it's often, I guess, that idea of if you're paying all this money in commission, you're going to want the best agent, and you're going to want the one who values their service and values your property and knows how to get the best results. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that is also another interesting idea as well, is there's this idea floating around, slightly different but same sort of tangent, is that if the agent's ability to negotiate is the most important thing, then should the company be providing leads for an agent? I know a lot of agents have this question, and when they're looking at what company, they go, what's in it for me? Am I going to get given leads? All this kind of thing. And there's often that perception, especially as a new agent. So what are your thoughts around lead generation for agents? Or is it, again, the best agents can build relationships themselves?
Yeah, if you're getting leads from an office, they're cold leads. It's a bit like these different companies that you register with and you get leads, and quite often by the time you've called the lead, they've gone with someone else, or they've reverted back to someone who's referred them business. Leads through an office is all very good, but I don't know if, and I work with many different companies where they are giving away leads, because generally you're out there generating them yourself through relationship. So the other thing too to remember is when I had a business and held the license for the business, if I was giving leads through the office, I would be really particular about the fit, because if you're someone that's getting a lead and I'm just going to give an example, you're a suit wearer, you go out, these people are hippie-ish, and I used to find that unless they were aligned, I would get complaint after complaint after complaint about the relationship that they were having as a manager. And I think it's really critical that you attract like for like. And that's the wonderful thing about real estate and being self-employed, is you can work with the people that you want to work with. And it's critical, and it's going to make the whole profession of real estate so much nicer if you can go and find your own clients and work with people that like you and trust you. So what do I think about it, Ben? I think great, but it's not an absolute deal cincher, because you're never going to get the business potentially anyway, or you may. But what is that relationship going to be like thereafter? Probably the manager's going to be very heavily involved with it, which means less commission for you potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's this. I guess the question being, is an agent going to, if I'm a new agent looking at different companies and one's offering me leads and one's not, I guess the question is, will I be more successful if they're offering me leads? And I guess from my experience, it's the agents who take ownership of their own pipeline who seem to do so, to do well.
Well, it's your own business, so yeah. I think I've never actually heard of people being offered leads to join companies, so it's very rare that happens. Great.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what people think of that idea, because I know I've heard across the industry different perspectives on it and who's responsible for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in agreement with you that at the end of the day, it's the agent, it's their business, they're entrepreneurial if they're getting into real estate a lot of the time, and treating it as their own brand, their own business is really important if you're going to be successful and generate those leads and pipelines and things like that. Yeah. So in terms of thinking about, say, a vendor, somebody's prospecting, they've knocked on their door or they've called them, you're not thinking of selling, you don't really want to talk to an agent at this point in time. What is something... I mean, in New Zealand, everyone's always interested in real estate. Yeah. I think it's built into our DNA. And I guess the question I have is, for someone who has an agent approach them, what are some ways that they can get value from the agent, even if they're not looking to sell now, so that when they are, they have all the information that they need?
I think, once again, it's service. So are they potentially... Things change all the time. So if you're not in touch constantly with your database, you may find one day you ring them and they go, oh, this is a very opportune moment for you to have called, because we've just decided to sell our home. This is why it's so important to keep in touch. You can offer, if they go, oh, we're moving to Tauranga. Oh, okay. So you can offer then your service of, oh, we have people in Tauranga, or I can help you, I'll refer you down to someone down there so that they can look after you. So it becomes a one-stop shop. So that's one aspect of it. If you know the market, you're able to discuss the market, you're able to discuss the best method of sale in the market. It's all about just providing them information that's relevant and on point, so that when they're ready, they're going to ring you. It's a no-brainer. It's a referral. It's, hey, I'm ready to go. E-newsletters are fantastic. I swear by those. And there's a wonderful magazine, Property Investor Magazine of New Zealand, which I get regularly. So if I'm writing a newsletter for something or someone, I'm really up to date with what's happening with the economy that's relevant to people selling and buying real estate.
Yeah, and I guess that the agent can feed that to the vendor. So from a vendor's perspective, if an agent offers to send them a market update, why not? Because then you're getting the updates, you can read them as you like, and then if you decide you don't want them, you can always unsubscribe.
Yeah.
And having that person that you build trust with over time, it also means that when you do come to sell, you're going to have someone you've already built a level of trust with.
That's right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.